Welcome to Candid Conversations with Dr. Mayfield. This episode is sponsored by Springs Mental Health Summit, a summit for parents, teachers, neighbors, and friends to talk about mental health in our community. For more information, go to springsummit.org. Here's your host, Trever Shirin.
Thank you for joining us on the beginning of Season 2 of Candid Conversations with Dr. Mayfield. We so enjoyed our break from recording and publishing these podcasts and are really excited to come back into it. I don't know about you, Mark, but man, I enjoyed that little bit of time to not have to worry about it.
Well, it's funny for those of you that are not watching us right now on video, we're going to be talking about self-care in a minute, and we should have taken care of ourselves over the last month, but we haven't. So we're a little bit hyped up on coffee right now and are going to share some experience, but yeah. No, the break was great. However, I do miss the conversations that you and I have had and the guests that we had. So, I think absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Oh, so totally.
A month off is now a good enough time to get the juices flowing again and get excited about doing this as a second season.
Yeah, we're thrilled to be back. Like Dr. Mayfield said, we are talking about self-care, something that neither of us is doing very well right now. We actually just had a conversation this morning about how we need to do so much better. And for those of you who don't know what self-care is, it is simply taking care of yourself and finding healthy patterns to make sure that you avoid burnout and avoid hurting yourself in the pace of life that you're in. And also, no one that I have ever met or ever heard of does this perfectly. And very few people do this well, and even more people just don't do it.
Well, so here's a scenario. You go, and you go, and you go, and you work hard, and you take care of your family, and you go some more, and then somehow you decide you're going to take a weekend away or you're going to go on a vacation, and 2 days in, you get so sick that you spend the rest of your vacation fighting off a cold or the flu. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, yeah. My wife's a teacher for high school, and inevitably, the first weekend of every break, her body just crumbles, and she gets some sort of cold or flu or something.
Well, it's my pattern, too. And, I'm supposed to be the one that is promoting self-care, which I do, but I think we get into these patterns, you said, or rhythms that aren't healthy. And so the minute we slow down, our body's like, oh, a break, and immune system shot, and we get caught up on resting, but it's a forced rest instead of a planned rest.
Yeah, we constantly talk about rhythms for self-care. And anybody who knows me personally knows that I have no sense of rhythm. So I kind of sometimes blame that for my lack of self-care. But Mark, would you like to explain what we mean by rhythms and tempo?
Well, it's funny. I think for the longest time we've heard, how well are you balancing your life? Have you heard that? Mm-hmm. It's this idea that we need to balance everything. Are you a good husband? Are you a good father? Are you a good worker? Are you a good friend? And it's like, how do I give 10% here and 15% of my time here and 20% there? And if you are a conscientious worker and a conscientious friend and a conscientious husband and father or mother, I'm speaking from my experience, so I'm using male pronouns, but it's this idea that, we get less and less time to give to those areas, and we burn out. And for a lot of us, like myself, we burn out pretty hard. And I've been challenged, and I know, Trevor, you've heard this just because we go out and we speak in the community and a lot. And so you've heard this, so I want you to speak up as well. But this idea that balancing is not going to work because we're going to drop all the plates. We're going to crash and burn. And as I thought about how do we do this well, it's this idea that it's not adding one more thing into our life and trying to balance in that, because then it's going to just crowd everything else out. But it's looking at our rhythms. And so our lives are going to be busy just because of the nature of being a dad or being a mom or a worker or a husband or a wife. But how do we do it in a way that maintains the capacity with as fast as our life is moving forward? So there's some seasons where, you got kids in sports and they're doing drama and you have to work and you got to make dinner and you got to take care of your house and you've got to be a friend and that kind of stuff. And so your life is moving forward pretty quickly. And so it's this idea of how do I add something? Is there a place that I can add something of self-care that fits the speed at which my life is going forward? And if we look at music, tempo is the rate at which you're going forward, and rhythm is syncing up to that tempo. It's how do we? So if we're going really fast, we can't do much to sync up. And so it's what am I looking? Word I'm looking for? It's being self-aware of what can I do in these moments. And I think we look at self-care as this big thing of a spa day or manicure, pedicure, massage,
which does not sound bad.
Doesn't sound bad at all. Like I might want to go do that now. But it's this idea that those are good things that we can schedule into our life. But it's that, hey, this afternoon I know I've got an hour time frame. Maybe I'm going to sit down on my couch and close my eyes for 15 minutes and do a power nap. Or if I'm sitting at my desk for 8 hours a day, it's getting up 2 or 3 times and walking around the block or the building or whatever.
Something I really like about this concept of tempo is a lot of the time we can't control our tempo.
No.
And we're not saying that in order to do self-care, you have to cut things out of your life. Sometimes that might be the best thing for you to do, and you probably know if that's the case. But there are times when we have things in our lives that are either important to us or necessary for what we're trying to do, and we can't cut it out. And so we have to find a way to fit self-care, or if we're going to follow this path of music, like find the place for the hi-hat in the midst of this song.
It's a drum thing for those that don't know music.
Yeah, see, I have no sense of rhythm, but I have some understanding of music. Find a place for the hi-hat of self-care to throw that in when you can. And it will add to the fullness of the sound of whatever song you're in right now, and add something where you can really care for who you are and develop and make sure that the song doesn't end before it should.
Well, I think that's a good reminder. And for an example, my wife and I have been in a very busy season, probably since January. We're getting ready to. We're building a house and growing a business, and I was working as a professor at a couple different universities, and working on keeping Mayfield counseling going, and seeing clients, and it was just a busy season. And the only thing that we had enough energy to muster was I'd come home and we'd have dinner together as a family, which is self-care for us, and then we'd sit down and watch a half-hour TV show. And that's all we could do for the last 6 months. Well, now we're in the house, and the business is doing well, and I'm having a break from being a professor right now, and our new house has a lake, and we can go fishing, and I love fishing, and I haven't done fishing in years just because of time. And so instead of coming home and having dinner and watching TV, we come home, and most 2 to 3 days a week we come home, have dinner, and then go up to the lake and go fishing. And I cannot tell you what that's done for my psyche, and that's done for my just overall health of just sitting by the lake, even if it's 15, 20 minutes. We haven't caught anything yet, and we've been out a couple weeks, but just being out in nature, and that's something that's good for me. And so it's not this grandiose plan of a thing that you need to do, but it's what can you do with the space and the time that you've got.
Yeah, totally. We talked a few podcasts ago in season 1, our silence episode, about an experience that I had at a university in Chicago, where the professor came in and said, our lives are so busy. Chicago is busy and noisy. Everything's distracting, and so I want to give you a gift. The next 5 minutes, I just want you to sit in silence. Don't pull out your journals. Don't pull out your phones. Just sit in the silence. And by him scheduling that and making that almost like an assignment, it was so helpful to be able to just sit there and know this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And there are other things that I will do afterwards, but I'm not supposed to think about them or worry about them right now. I can just let them be 5 minutes from now. Was so helpful. And being able to implement that into our lives and say, okay, at 2:00 today, I'm going to set aside 5 minutes. I'm going to go into whatever space I can, even if it's the bathroom, and I'm going to sit there and I'm just going to be silent, not play on my phone, not do anything, maybe close my eyes if I don't think I'm going to fall asleep, which I would definitely do today if I was to do that.
Yep.
And just sit in silence for 5 minutes, and that might be awful for you. And that brings up the other good point about self-care, that our methods are not going to be the same for everyone else.
No, and it's interesting that you bring that up. Many moms and dads with young kids, the bathroom is the safe place, that get away from being needed. But I did, it's been about a year, I think, or a year and a half now that I taught a semester at the Air Force Academy. And these cadets are, being trained to be our military elite. And they're coming from being in high school to being a freshman and a sophomore, which they don't call them that. They call them different degrees of whatever. I don't remember what it was. But the constant thing that I got in my class is, like, we don't have time for self-care. And I would challenge them in that, yes, your days are scheduled for you and you're busy, but when you have a schedule that says you should be studying, why not schedule every hour a 5-minute, what we call pattern interrupt in your day, or just a 5-minute reprieve? And research shows that if we push through let's say we need to get work done and we have to have this deadline is tomorrow morning and we don't have any time for a break, research shows that you're most productive in the first 20 to 30 minutes of that time, even if it's 3 hours of time. And so, cognitively, let's say you push through for a 35, 40-minute period, you take a 5-minute break. Well, now you've just used the most productive time. You're taking a break, pattern interrupt, watching a 5-minute YouTube video, going for a walk, getting a glass of water, whatever that might be. You come back and you do another 25, 35, 40-minute. Now you're starting over the productivity piece. And I can say this is from experience. When I wrote my dissertation, 200 some odd page paper, my original thought was push through. I'd start on a Saturday morning and I wouldn't stop until dinner. And I look back at it, I'm like, I wrote 10 pages in that 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. And somebody told me this about the pattern interrupt and about, scheduling these breaks. And so I would set a timer for 40 minutes and I'd write as much as I could in 40 minutes. And then I would take a 15-minute break. Guess how much I wrote in 4 hours doing that?
How much?
50 pages. Right? And so, we think that let's just grin and bear it. Well, no, we have it all wrong.
Well, and I would challenge just one small part of what you said of taking that 5 minutes to watch a YouTube video. I think so often we think that we're doing a pattern interrupt or something similar by turning to our phones or going on Facebook. And research has shown there's no benefit to that at all. There's maybe a little bit of a dopamine hit that would happen and maybe some distraction, just escapism, but that's not the point of self-care. That's really just kind of pulling yourself out of the washing machine and ending the cycle for like 2 seconds while you do something else and then just throwing yourself back in there rather than turning off the machine. And
it's an interesting analogy.
Yeah, it's not working so well. But I think a lot of the times we come home from work and we turn on a show or we scroll Facebook or we do both at the same time. And there's no benefit to that. And so I would encourage you to find a book that you're interested in or a subject that you're interested in, and you can YouTube that subject.
Right.
Or go on a walk, do something that kind of engages other parts of your mind than just mindlessly scrolling Facebook. And you could get through a whole book in a month if you're just spending 5 minutes every so often reading something.
For those of you that don't like reading or not good at it, download an audiobook and put it on for a little while. Yeah. Right. It's still the escapism piece, but it should be a way that's enticing, engaging the mind in a different way. But even something as simple as just a mindful breath. And I know we talked about that last season, but the idea that you breathe in through your nose as far as you can go, hold it for 4 seconds, and then blow out your mouth. That's even a pattern interrupt from distraction or from stress or from kind of the craziness. And so maybe you can't get away every hour for 5 or 10 minutes because you have a job that's pretty high demanding. finding a way to take those mindful breaths and being aware of that is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of this happens in our heads too. We
Sure.
can do self-care even if our bodies are still in motion. Just being able to be mindful. And we talked last season about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 project or activity,
Yep.
where you pay attention to 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things that you can smell. 3 things you can touch.
Yeah.
Whatever. Go through the 5 senses.
Go back and
work
listen to
down.
that one. Yeah.
And you can even, you can do that while you're working on something, as long as it's not like intellectual, that you're trying to like write something while you're doing that. That probably wouldn't work out. But even that mindfulness of grounding yourself in where you are is enough of a pattern interrupt
Sure.
To enter that hi-hat into the song.
Well, one of the things too, I know a lot of our listeners are probably working corporate jobs or hourly jobs or jobs where they don't have much control over their sick leave or their vacation time. They get
moms.
Yeah, or moms,
and
right?
dads.
And they can't get away from the responsibility that is being a parent, right? And however, I've talked to some mentors in my life, and they've really suggested that we need to be in control of our vacation time and our time away. If it's a parent, when you're on all the time, there's no break from being a parent. It's finding a trusted babysitter and getting a date night with your spouse at least once a month. And that's not something that needs to cost a lot of money. Go play miniature golf and get a milkshake at Chick-fil-A or something. And
Not a sponsor yet.
Not a sponsor yet. We're working on that. but then, or being in control of your vacation time. And so, the nice thing about working and owning your own company and working at a place like Mayfield Counseling is we're not too stringent on time off, and we really actually encourage our staff to do self-care. But my mentor goes, well, have you ever thought about a week off in the fall, a week off in the spring that doesn't include holidays, and then 2 weeks off in the summer? And I said, that would be wonderful, but how do you even pull that off? And he goes, I'm going to ask you a different question. How could you not pull that off?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would you lose if you didn't? I'm thinking about what would I lose if I did, because, you're thinking about business and...
Well, and NPR just recently did a segment on a study that came out showing that there are billions of dollars worth of sick and vacation leave that go unused every single year in America. And their study found that the individuals who don't take vacation, don't schedule it, don't make it happen, are least likely to get a raise or a promotion. It's the ones who do use their vacation time that are more likely to get raises and promotions. And some of it is just the self-care piece of you. It's important for us to prioritize our work while we're at work,
Sure.
to make sure that we're wholeheartedly dedicated to what we're doing. But we also need to recognize there is a time and a place for us to take a step back, to care for ourselves, to go do something different, shorter vacations that allow you less time so you feel more urgency to put away the phone and to put away the computer and not check emails. And I thought it was really interesting that we can see by doing this self-care, by going on weekend trips or taking 3 days off in the middle of a week, the things that we are trying to get by not doing that are given to us more frequently.
Well, I'm thinking about businesses that are famous for creating a culture of self-care, like Google, pool tables and go. I mean, just things that they say, isn't that taking away from productivity? And they're like, no, it enhances creativity and productivity. Pixar Animation, DreamWorks Animation Studios. But you think about I'm going to butcher this. It's a Northern European country. I think it either is Holland or Denmark or Sweden or Finland. Or one of those countries is the most, the happiest place to live. And you look at their paternity leave is a year, maternity leave is a year when they have a kid. It's the vacation time. It's not, it's suggested you get 30 days off a year. I think in this country, you have to take 30 days off a year. I mean, that'd be awesome,
right?
If that's what we did here. But we're so production driven that self-care goes by the wayside.
Totally.
And I'm guilty as charged.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we are the pot calling the kettle black right now. Like we said at the beginning, we've got bags under our eyes.
Yeah, right.
We didn't use this month break the way we should, but I think there's something really beautiful about being able to encourage, for me to encourage you, Mark, to do better self-care, for you to encourage me, and for us to be able to encourage you, our listeners, to take a moment today just to take care of yourself. See what it feels like. See what you can do. Find some sort of ritual or activity that you can do to interrupt the pattern of your rhythm, and care for yourself so that you can do what you want to do for much longer.
Or just reevaluate your tempo and rhythm. Where
Right.
are you? Just note where you're at. Note, I think a lot of times we don't even want to take a step back and go, well, here's where I'm at. What can I do? And so challenging our listeners today just to go, just evaluate where you're at.
Totally. And play the what if game. What if I don't do this project? Or what if I don't pick up this extra thing? Or what if I don't do this thing that I've been doing for months? And hopefully on a lot of those things, you'll be like, okay, everything in the world would fall apart. But you'll probably find that there are a couple things where you get down the what if trail and it's like nothing would change.
The most powerful word in the English language that I'm going to challenge our listeners to use, not carte blanche, but use sparingly, but on in appropriate times, is no. You can say no. You don't have to say yes to everything. There's a lot of us that will say yes to everything because we think it's great. There's good things out there, but saying no creates margin, creates space, slows down the tempo, allows you room for self-care.
And I've read studies that go along with the vacation one that want people who say no more often, and this isn't saying like always say no, but the ones who are willing to say no to things that they should say no to are more likely to get that promotion, take the next step, get a raise, be more productive. There's a real beauty to doing these things that seem contradictory to our goals that are actually helping us along with those goals, and what we're doing right now is the hindrance.
Yep, I agree. So if you want to know more about self-care, email us at candid@mayfieldcounseling.com. We can give you a reading list of things that you could go through, but it's not rocket science. And so feel free to reach out, but also do your own research and see what you come up with.
Yeah, go take care of yourself. You're important and you deserve to be cared for. And I hope that you find a good rhythm in the midst of your tempo.
I think it's time for a nap.
Oh my gosh. We'll see you next week on Candid Conversations.
Thank you for joining Candid Conversations. If you would like more information, go to mayfieldcounseling.com/Candid Conversations and check out our Facebook page, Candid Conversations with Dr. Mayfield.